Awesome. So, we're not doing well this week, if you can't tell by the way that I'm laid on the ground. We're not doing well this week. Um, yeah, that's really just it. But I'm staying accountable. I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm recording this on my phone so that I can have good audio. So, this week, week 3 is about recovering your own sense of personal strength. Which is so funny because I feel like this was the hardest week I've ever lived. Probably. Second hardest week, maybe. It starts off talking about anger, which I really like because I've always felt this way that anger is a compass. It should point you towards whatever you feel is. Yeah, it should point you towards, that which has wronged you. If you're angry at your parents, if you're angry at your boss, if you're angry at your roommate or whatever, you should be looking at your internal values and figure out why, like what exactly about that anger is pointing you towards that. Doesn't mean you have to act on it, but anger points away, not the finger. Anger is a tool and not a master. I really liked that. Next, she talks about synchronicity. She talks about how it is like when you start doing this recovery work, when you start saying what you're going to do and you don't even worry about the how, it's like really hard to actually it's really hard to actually not walk through the many doors, and like how when you ask for it to be open and the door opens, how most people are not prepared for what that actually means, like the action that comes next. Most people are not prepared to actually step through and say, oh, well, now that I asked for it, what do I do with this? Um, yeah, I wrote, ask, see what happens, record the results. Now, something I did think was weird, Julia, now what does it mean we all have our Africas, those dark and romantic notions that call to our deepest selves? Girl, explain yourself. You can go to Africa. Like, I'm pretty sure you can afford to go to Africa and see. Like, it just feels like you're just doing an Orientalist thing, but you've moved it from, like, China to Africa, where you're like, it's this strange, mysterious place that no one can ever go to. But if you ask God, and I'm like, girl, you can pay for the ticket. Like, you can go. You can just go. It doesn't have to be a mysterious, whatever. I thought that was so strange that she was just like, yeah, everybody's got an inner Africa, a place that is mysterious and dark and romantic that calls to our deepest selves, but we can never go. Julia, are you banned? Are you banned from Africa? Is that what's happening there? Whatever. Anyways, um, yeah, the universe falls in line with worthy plans, and most especially with festive and expansive ones. Um, yeah, I consider synchronicity to be like an external echo of an internal choice. Like, I have a very close friend who she was studying to be a lawyer. She wanted to be a lawyer. She spent a bunch of time basically studying to take the LSAT, and she kind of just pivoted. One day she just pivoted and she was like, what if I don't want to do paperwork all day? Like, what if I want to teach history? What if that's actually what I'm in love with? And she decided not to take the LSAT, and I swear, like, within like a day or a week, our local school system opened up and said like, hey, we're looking for history teachers. And so she got immediately on the track to like get her master's to become a teacher, and it felt like the world just like sort of slicked into place for her. I hate using that word. It sort of just like, yeah, fell into place for her, like everything one after another. Obviously, not saying anyone's life is easy. That's the easy, that is a very harmful assumption and a very reductionist version of the story. But um and I think that's where people get this thing wrong. But I do think the synchronicity was there of like, I made the choice and then everything all at once. Like, dad calls her and says like, hey, her dad calls her and says like, hey, this job just opened up, and then one after another, it just like becomes quite easy for her to go down the path of the life that she sort of saw herself going towards, but I don't know, she had a different perspective of her life up until then, and then it just fell into place. So I have experience, and I know that people experience synchronicities, and I've seen and heard from other people that have experienced synchronicities. And maybe this is like where I'm at right now, but I feel like there is no synchronicities to be had. This is like, I feel like every time my life gets bad, I turn towards philosophy, I turn towards self-help to really get me through. And a lot of the times, the thing that stops me from actively finishing out self-help books is that like some sort of synchronicity happens and I'm like, yippee, the change that I was hoping for is here. And as beautiful as that is, I think it's very romantic, and I think that that's kind of what I'm experiencing here is the opposite of that. It's as if there are no synchronicities, because if there were synchronicities, hi Cooper, if there were synchronicities, then it would distract me from finishing the work. And so what that does mean is that I feel like I'm walking down a long corridor, and a lot of doors are closing. And a lot of the doors are closing, and the people behind them are saying, next time. Next time. Like, sorry, next time. And I'm like, ow, Cooper, ow. Jesus. I'm just like not really feeling any good things happening to me. Like, good things is in like friendship and relationships and stuff, and people have been encouraging me like where I'm at right now is right, and that I do need to slow down and just take some time. But she just keeps talking about these like gifts, these blessings that should show up to affirm that you're on the right path, and I fear none of that is happening to me. I fear that I'm going through 8,000 shut doors in my face all at once, and that's just a reality of it. She talks about how artists, will allow shame to stop them from continuing to make art. Making a piece of art may feel a lot like telling a family secret, but the act of making art exposes a society to itself, and art brings things into the light. It clears all the cabinets and shelves and brings light to dark corners. And so you might start feeling like, oh, how dare you? Like, how dare I? Who am I to be the one to say this stuff? And people might start treating you like that. But it is honestly a dangerous act to put anything out there. So we shouldn't be restrictive of ourselves. We should just be protective of ourselves, our inner artist. And then she goes kind of into how we earn shame through time. Like, ideally, she says, ideally our safety net, our safety net is in the order of this. Like, hopefully you get support from family, and then you get support from your school, and then you get support from your outer community. But what ends out happening is that people fail. Koopy, I love you so bad. I love you so bad. I'm sure the mic is so messed up right now. Yeah, we just end out, if it fails at any of those points, it can introduce shame, and that shame just resounds, and we start feeling the undulations of it, the ripple effect of it in our art, and what we allow other people to see. Yeah, shame can snowball from minuscule doubt into catastrophized negative thoughts, and we have to become protected now, because if we, like, say you show someone your first draft of a script or whatever, and they give you the tiniest criticism, you might allow negative thoughts to come through and take hold. So she kind of talks about the difference between good criticism and bad criticism, which I think is helpful, because I'm someone who, like, as soon as I get done with something, if I'm working on something, I want to show people ASAP. Like, I want the serotonin and the good vibes of, like, someone seeing that I'm working on something, someone acknowledging that I'm in a good way and that I'm doing the right thing. Um, but I think that that can also lead to a lot of like me putting my own sort of stopgaps. I don't know what the word is. Like I can't conjure it to my brain right now. But putting my own problems in, putting my own obstacles into my art because I'm like, well, this person doesn't like it, or this person thinks it should go another way, and now I've got to consider their idea and maybe change mine. And it's a whole thing, but she kind of goes through good criticism versus bad criticism, how to handle it, how not to beat yourself up. And she says, like, the antidote for shame is self love and self praise. She says, not to tell yourself that it doesn't matter, but that you will heal when you're dealing with criticism. And then she goes into a bunch of, like, detective work. And this is something that I don't know. I think that this chapter was far more useful than chapter 2 when it comes to journaling, when it comes to the things that I'm thinking about as an artist, because I'm always thinking about my growth, and I'm always thinking about my inner child and how those things, how I can heal my inner child. Oh, I wonder if this is still recording. Yeah, nice. How I can heal my inner child with my external actions. There's a lot of movies, a lot of music, a lot of art, a lot of books that I read, not because I'm like an adult who's like trying to be Peter Pan and I don't want to grow up, but more so, no, Cooper, don't do that here. Do not do that here. But more so that when I was a child, I wasn't allowed to watch movies, I wasn't allowed to listen to music, I wasn't allowed to do, anything that wasn't Christian. And so a lot of what I'm doing now is trying to watch and read and experience things. Like, I still haven't seen Fern Gully for some reason. That's actually something I'm going to do this week. But, like, that's literally something that I do, is I take things that I wasn't allowed to watch growing up, and I just tackle them, like goals. And so I do feel like I live my life in this growth mindset. I live my life in this idea of, like, I'm doing this because Lexi 20 years ago would have zero idea that I am able to do this. I do think that just leads to a lot of personal catastrophe sometimes. And I think that it shows me that a lot of my biggest fear is spurned by shame, is spurned by, honestly, fear over shame. Fear that I'm not going to do well. Fear that there are 1,000 billion other people in the world that can do the job better than me. Fear that what I see as good is actually not good. And I don't think imposter syndrome particularly covers it anymore. When you, like, become feminist for so long that you're like, I actually don't agree with what a lot of mainstream people are saying. Like, when you start getting, like, weird, you're like, I'm starting to get conspiracy theories. I've been around so long. Like, I feel that way about imposter syndrome. I don't think I used imposter syndrome to describe myself in the first place. But I supremely don't agree with it now. Like, I don't think that I have imposter syndrome. I think that there's just not a person in the world that will let the door open long enough for me to walk through in the first place. Which means and signifies to my inner artist brain that I am not as good as I think I am. Which is so not fair. So not fair. When in reality, just everything's bad. The economy's failing. People are losing their houses. People are sad. People don't have disposable income. They can't just, like, test out the vibes on people anymore. It's just not that way. And I am learning that, like, a lot of people would love to take a chance on me. They just can't afford to. And that's, like, different than imposter syndrome entirely. But I'm gonna keep pushing through. Because I think that everything about this industry, everything about, like, I don't want to sell games to people. I'm not saying I'm gonna turn down a, like, if you got a job selling games and you're like, Lexi would be perfect for it, like, please. I'm not turning down a job selling games. But what I will say is that that's, like, not the thing that I feel particularly called to do. I don't want to talk about how the games industry has changed over time. Like, I'm not someone who keeps track of that. I mean, I do, but far more for the storytelling purpose than the economical impact of it. I am someone who wants to tell stories, and where in the world does someone like that fit in? That's the real question. And the sad part is there is no answer. Like, yes, you can GM, yes, you can DM, yes, you can even be a marketing consultant for people where you're telling stories through images and whatever else. But just like, I don't see a world where someone like me exists and succeeds. As someone who tells stories, as someone who writes musicals, as someone who plays 6 instruments, as someone who can sing, as someone who can dance, as someone who can act, as someone who can write scripts and wants to be in a writer's room and is training comedy and has all of these big ideas about the world. And like, I don't see where people like me thrive. I don't see where people like me are happy either. I know a lot more people who have as many skills and talents as I do who have to settle with, like, well, I just don't do anything with any of it. And I just sit at home and I do this desk work and I hope that I have enough time to do stuff on the weekends. I see a lot more people like that than I do people like me who are thriving doing the stuff that they want to be doing. And that's kind of sad. But because of that, I think I just have to keep pushing through. It feels really hard to have this chapter be about personal strength, and I feel artistically very weak. I feel artistically very kicked down. And maybe just physically and emotionally kicked down. But I will continue. Hopefully some things show up. Hopefully journaling this week. I did morning pages every single day this week, except for today, but that's because I was a little busy. My tummy is just out, y'all. YouTube's gonna flag. YouTube is going to flag us. But yeah, I did my morning pages. I went on my artist date this week. I took myself to Barnes & Noble. I looked at books. I sat down in the little cafe area and I wrote and drew. It was great. Yeah, I think that this is going to be an interesting next week. The next week is about recovering your inner sense of integrity. So I will see you at the end of week 4.